not.
Welcome back.
All
Episode
right.
20 of the Unlimited Range podcast. I am Jack Engelman. This is my co-host, Dean Engelman, and it's a wonderful Thursday afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jack. It's been an interesting week. NFL trade deadline, presidential election. It's been busy this week.
Yeah, and I was just thinking too. I don't know why this. I was thinking about this just a second ago, but got the daylight savings time thing that happened over the weekend, and I didn't know that was coming. It's the first I usually hear. I usually hear chatter about that in like the week leading up, but I just didn't know it happened. And then,
Yeah.
you know how and I've heard from other people saying this is when the dogs start asking for food
Oh
about
yeah.
an
That's
hour
what.
earlier than usual.
Yeah. Dewey's been beside himself this week. He doesn't know why he's behind on the
Do you want to
clock.
get? I don't think we've talked about Dewey on the podcast. Do you want to give our viewers a brief overview?
Well, Dewey is our 11-year-old black retriever. He was half golden retriever, half black Labrador, and he is an interesting fellow. But he can tell time.
It's one of his
And
few things he can do.
he does love to eat. So if anybody has a Labrador type dog and they say they don't know how to train them, and they haven't tried food, you might want to try that because he responds pretty well to anything that's food related.
Yeah, and I've heard some dog trainers have said that they actually look for dogs who are food motivated more than they look for dogs who are just naturally smart. Because in the end, even if the dog isn't as necessarily as smart, if they're food motivated, that keeps them going longer.
It's Dewey is extremely food motivated, and
Should we tell him
he's
about
doing well. He's doing well. He's had a little bit of a rough week here with the daylight savings time, but he's doing good.
He's got that biological clock. Yeah.
And,
So
speaking of dogs, and you have two dogs, and one of them decided to run away from home this week.
yeah, we talked about that. I was going to. We were talking about how I'm only talking about it because it's more funny now that it's over with. But yeah, don't know what happened. Was working from the office and got two dogs. I heard barking and it didn't sound like it was coming from within the house. I probably should have got up right away, but I obviously didn't think what I'm about to say next had occurred. So I probably about 5 minutes, and then I go outside because I finally was like, I don't think they're outside in the backyard. And that sounds like it's not coming from in the house. I turn out the door, I look out the backyard first. They're not out there. And then I see my big dog at the front door, wagging his tail, barking at me to let him in. So I know something's not right. And an aside, I know something's not right because he likes to escape. He thinks it's very funny to get out of the yard. He always comes back, but he thinks it's really funny when you chase him. So he likes getting outside the yard and having you chase him, a mile or two down the road, and then he eventually comes back. So the fact that he was sitting at the door and he wasn't gone, I was like, okay, something's weird here. Door. So we have a glass door. We have one of those glass doors, and then it's like a real door behind it. And I had left the glass door locked and the main door was open. So I don't know what happened, but the glass door was off the hinge. So I was like, uh-oh. Went outside, running, looking around. I don't see her. I thought maybe she'd just be right out in the front yard. She wasn't. I get in the car, drive around the block. She's not there. So I'm like starting to freak out or whatever. And then I finally see her. She's like halfway down the street and she's just going crazy. She's just like running all around. I chase her. She sees me. She's like panicked for some reason. So she takes off the other way. I run like 2 miles down the street. I'm literally exhausted. I had just enough time to like put shoes on, but I wasn't wearing the right clothes and I still had like a sweatshirt on, and I'm chasing her. And wouldn't you know it, I see her and I lose her, and this guy in his car flags me down. And wouldn't you know, his name's Dean, and he's like,
good name.
And I was talking to one of my buddies here too. This is another funny part of the story. Moving to Tennessee, it's interesting because you meet a lot of people that are transplants, and it's kind of like a city population, but then you also meet a fair share of locals before this area blew up, and they're kind of like stereotypical Southern. They have deep Southern accents and things of that nature. So he was one of those, and he's like, hop in, and and it was hilarious. He's like, and I'm not going to try to imitate a Southern accent because I don't have one, but he basically he's like, yeah, I think something spooked her. I was like, yeah, and he's like, well, why don't we just trail her? See, I got experience doing this with skunks. And I was like, oh. so,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
yeah, so we
sure.
trailed her, and she was so tired. She was breathing like extremely heavily. We followed her. She ran home. I got out, took her inside. She had busted up. She had been running so hard that she busted up all of her paw pads. She's
Oh gosh.
we weren't sure if she was milking an injury or she was actually injured, so we've been monitoring her. I think she just way overdid it. She's a 110-pound dog, not meant to be running like that. So she is home, and now it's funny. Anyway, that's the backstory. It's funny because she wouldn't last 10 minutes if she escaped home. And you and I thought that was kind of funny that these dogs that have a really good life where all they get to do is eat, sleep, get pet, get
Lay on the
treats,
couch.
lay
Yeah,
on the
I mean,
couch, watch some TV. She likes watching TV. Um, would think that it's a good idea to escape and run home. It doesn't make sense.
yeah, I mean, sometimes you just, you get uncomfortable with where you're at, or you want to get out of there. Just like a little kid, it's like I want to run away from home, and they,
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. She wouldn't do well. It was pretty scary because at first when I was circling the block, I was like, oh, I was just crossing my fingers, like, oh, I hope she didn't just completely disappear. I Natalie thought it was funny because I mean, it's kind of funny. You know her, so no one would take her willingly. She's not a very good dog. Um, no one would take her, and she's too big to be kidnapped. But it was hard to. I was trying to block it out. I was like, oh, what if somebody did take her? But then I realized that'd be stupid. But I was hoping I
they'd
wasn't
give
going to
her
find her.
back.
Yeah, they'd give her back
They
probably.
would give her back. Yeah, they'd
Yeah,
be
they'd
looking
definitely give her
for a
back.
home.
They definitely give her back. But I was thinking like I was like, oh man, I hope I don't. And that's so. It made me just really sad for people who do actually lose their dogs. It's got to be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, if they actually or get hit or something else, I mean,
Yeah,
that's the thing I would worry the most about is her getting, in a car
yeah. Because as
accident
she
or
was
something like
running,
that.
there was a couple cars she had a really close because with Ash, my other guy, if he got out, he'd come back and he's smart enough to kind of do his own thing. She's not. She definitely was at one point. She was running straight towards the main road.
Hickory Boulevard,
Yeah. So
Old Hickory.
I had
Yeah,
to get out in front of her and cut her off because I'm pretty sure she would have done that. But yeah, I got her back. Classic dog escaping the house where they have a really great life to
yeah.
take it out on the road. So that was a wild experience.
Well, now
Uh,
she knows what's out there, and it's not pretty.
it's not
So
great, yeah. So I don't know if she'll do that again.
she
But
probably will
let's
stick
spin
around.
that. That's my chaotic story of the week. Let's spin it over to Dean's trivia question of the week, if you have that. And what
I
was last
do, and
week's?
it's
Last week's was Halloween related.
yeah. Last week's was Halloween
Last week
related,
was
and
Halloween.
and I was looking for something related to the number 20. Best I could find out what was number 20 in the atomic scale, but I don't think anybody would know that one. So I'm going to actually make this. Might be a little bit of a trick question. NFL footballs are made out of what material?
Interesting.
It
And
is.
I think what you're attempting to do there is pull it, maybe basically see if people are lured into. My interpretation of this is that the football is called the pigskin, and
Mm,
you're kind of trying to maybe make a play to see is it actually made of pigskin or is it made of something
right.
else.
Right.
Okay, so
That's
that's kind of
yeah.
so it's kind of this is almost more of like thought experiment trivia.
A little bit. It is. We'll go with that. Yeah. If you remember last week's trivia was Reese's Cups was the answer to last week's
Reese's
trivia.
cups.
And if you haven't watched last week's episode, then you're already ahead of the game.
Okay. Well, yeah, and that is a good reminder. It is episode 20. I'm not sure that's like the biggest milestone you can have. I think probably maybe 50 or 100 is a bigger milestone. But if you have watched all 20 episodes of the Unlimited Range podcast, there's probably not too many of you out there, but we do appreciate it. And I think I think we'll maybe do some football stuff on the back end. But it was just Halloween. And it is now we're entering into November. We're gonna have Thanksgiving coming up here pretty soon, and before you know it, it's gonna be Christmas. Which brings us to this week's unlimited range viewer question of the week, and it's actually I'm gonna kind of go ahead and combine them because this viewer who submitted this question, my mother, she kind of I guess gave us a couple options, but I think they kind of go together. Um, and basically, I think what she's wanting to ask us the is she the only person, speaking of my mom, who does want to wait to put up the Christmas tree, do the music until after Thanksgiving? And then also, I guess what's your favorite holiday kind of mixed in? I guess it's all kind of one question. So I'll send it over to you first. Did you think there's a little bit too much premature Christmas? Where do you
We
view
were at the
Christmas as
store
a
today, and
holiday?
they were pounding some Christmas music at Hobby Lobby and a couple of the other places. At the at home store, I guess we were at heavy Christmas rotation already, and it feels a little early for that. But I don't know how much of a difference it makes to me. It just feels like if it's 78 degrees here in Nashville, it's not really feeling like Christmas yet. So I'm not really in the mood for it, but it
It
doesn't.
sounds like you're trying to take a stance without necessarily taking a stance.
I would
So you're out on
prefer
it?
I would prefer they hold off on that a little bit, but I again, it's just I don't. It doesn't like turn me off that I don't want to go somewhere because they have the Christmas stuff out already. But it feels like until December, I'm not really thinking about Christmas.
Yeah, I get that. I think for me, it's kind of challenging because my answer to this question is that I think that I think that the folks out there that are really trying to push their agenda, I'll say that there's really any other holiday that's in competition with Christmas. Um, is moderately upsetting to me. I think there's been a push in recent years, and this is anecdotal. I don't have evidence to support this, but it seems like there's been a push to kind of. I understand that there are different holidays. I understand that Christmas is not the only holiday, but I don't know if you would agree with me. I think there's a clear tier system in terms of holidays, because
Okay.
there's a lot of holidays, Flag Day, Earth Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, um, President's Day. We have all kinds of holidays, and they're not all created equal. Um, and so I think there's a growing number of people when you ask them like, "What's your favorite holiday?" and or you get people who say Halloween, and I just think there needs to be a reset. We need to hit the reset button. Anyone who's saying that it's Christmas is not their favorite holiday, I'm not going to say that they may not have good reasons for that, but I just don't really believe it. And I think in the case of Christmas, it's okay to start celebrating that holiday as winter approaches because I like Thanksgiving. I like some of these other guys. I like Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I like what some of these guys are doing, but there's got to be an understanding that there's levels to that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is a lot of people that I think Christmas, for whatever reasons, brings up some challenging emotions that you don't think you have on other as much on other holidays. I mean, I don't know if for me, if I put two holidays, probably that are the pinnacle holidays, it would be Fourth of July and Christmas. Um,
Well, that
but
actually is a really good point. I do not think Fourth of July gets the credit it deserves.
it,
Um, I really don't. I think Fourth of July is one of the better holidays, just from a standpoint of the holiday and what it means, but also from the perspective of it's kind of like a good. It's a really good timing for a holiday, kind of the middle of July,
yep.
some summer. You can do the fireworks, you can do some of that stuff, the barbecue. A lot of the other holidays are not really placed in spots where they're more versatile. And I think Fourth of July is a very versatile holiday. So actually, I think Fourth of July is my second favorite holiday, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think so too. And then once you go that, like, yeah, there's the ones you get the day off for. I mean, I think they probably rise above some of the other days like Flag Day, and I guess it's now called Indigenous Peoples Day. We used to call it Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Earth Day. I mean, they're nice, but if you don't get the day off, it kind of, it's just a day. Then I think
Yeah, it's not really moving the needle at that point, right?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know how many people really celebrate any of those like take a vacation day to say like I'm going to celebrate
Here's what
Flag
I'll
Day.
tell you this. I'll ruffle some feathers for the 20 people that might look into this and watch this cast. Um, I think what some people, and I think mom included in that list, have a problem with is that not everybody respects Thanksgiving equally. And I would be one of those people. I just don't it the history of the holiday is great. You know, it, I think there's a large group of people really pushing Thanksgiving, and outside of the parade and the football, I think it's very unmemorable. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but I think you have two camps. And I think that's why the Christmas stuff gets started early, because the people like myself who don't really have a lot of passion for the Thanksgiving holiday are happy to kick off the festivities and get it rolling towards Christmas.
I think Thanksgiving has really suffered from the way that society's become transient and people have moved all around and things like that. When I was growing up, we got together with family on one side or the other every Thanksgiving and Christmas. We probably kind of rotate some things or do it at different times, but you got together with the whole family. Like my Uncle Stanley and Uncle Clyde, they lived in town, and we'd go over there. Or on my dad's side, there's aunts and uncles and cousins. I remember playing, you know, eating and Thanksgiving dinner and playing games and stuff like that in the afternoon. Football was on, and wasn't they didn't have they had, still had two games, not three, um, but now it's really hard. Everybody's got to travel for Thanksgiving. A lot of people don't live anywhere near family, so it's kind of a I think it's taken away from why people appreciate Thanksgiving as much. But I think on the flip side of that, we've got some people that are traveling here. I think in years past we've had people, just friends get together, and I think some people do this whole friendsgiving thing, which I actually kind of enjoy quite a bit. The one guy at the bar downtown, him and his wife make a Thanksgiving meal for people and invite people that come in quite a bit, and like they want to do it for all their friends. I think that's a really neat spin on Thanksgiving. I think it takes a place of family because values have changed a little bit, and so I do enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Thanksgiving's certainly, shouldn't be slept on entirely. I think Thanksgiving's problem is more so where it comes in the hierarchy, and what they're trying to do. Big what the big guys up top are trying to do is kind of put Thanksgiving in a place where it's right around the same time frame as the end of the year as Christmas, and kind of like force feed you that it's just as important as those things. And I obviously understand why Thanksgiving is on the date that it is, but Thanksgiving would do a lot better, I think, in like March. I don't think it deserves that end of the year time slot right as things are headed towards Christmas like a freight train. I think Thanksgiving would be much better served, uh, in the springtime, something like that, something where there's more of a dead period and it can get kind of more of the attention, because I think where they're placing it in the order is kind of the problem for me. But so yeah, hopefully that answers the viewer question of the week. Thanks for that write in. Also, for our viewers, if anybody out there that's viewing the podcast is watching and you want us to answer any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll check on them, and maybe we'll answer one of your questions in one of the coming episodes. So why don't we pivot over to a little bit of football stuff? Eagles had a great win. Well, that just came out. That wasn't actually true. It wasn't a great win. It started off great, and then it kind of went downhill. I don't know if you prepared it, but I think we can make Saquon Barkley the unlimited range player of the week for the run he had.
He, a reverse backwards hurdle. I'm not sure I've seen. There was some really great catches this weekend, but I've never seen anybody actually do a spinning hurdle, go over someone backwards. Much less, I mean, it's hard enough to do it forwards. But let's be honest, he did it backwards, and your mom was in the other room, and I'm like, oh my god, get in here! You got to see this.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody ever do that before. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was wild, and definitely added a spark, and it's definitely exciting having a guy like that on the team. It's fun to watch as a big fan of the NFL in general. Watches every game. Um, I take genuine enjoyment in watching a lot of the exciting players, but when when a guy like that is on your team, it just makes it kind of extra fun. But you brought up something, and I guess I'll ask the question there. Uh, we do risk sounding like homers if we call that the unlimited range player of the week, because there were a couple other standout plays. Do you have another unlimited range play or player of the week that you'd like to mention? Because that Garrett
You
Wilson
know,
catch was pretty incredible.
that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, he got hit where he got his leg down there before his knee went out of bounds. That was amazing. That was a great catch. Devontae Smith had a great catch. Both of those, and somebody else had another one-handed stab. I mean, the fact that these people are catching the ball the way they are and getting their feet in bounds is continues to be pretty amazing. So I think those are the ones that stand out the most. Um, the couple overtime games. I was glad to see that the Rams game didn't end on the first drive of the game like the Kansas City game. I still can't understand how the NFL doesn't give both teams the ball. But the Rams had a good win in overtime, and they've got a big game coming up this week. So some good games coming up. The Redskins continue to win.
Yeah,
Commanders.
it's not quite. I don't think we can quite make it limited range player performance of the week, because it's to be expected at this point. But I was kind of early on watching the Giants Commanders game a little bit closely because that's becoming a serious race over there with the Commanders for the Eagles, and I thought the Giants could maybe give him a tough time the way it looked early. And then that proved not to be true because the Giants kind of stink. Other limited range will stay in the division. Limited range team slash owner of potentially the decade. I don't know if you want to take this one, but Jerry Jones elects to do nothing all offseason and then trade not a lot of capital, but enough capital for a guy who can't see the field in Carolina.
No, what's his name? Jonathan Mingo. It's
Mingo.
Mingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a second round draft pick. Can't get on the field in front of an undrafted free agent. Can't get on the field after Deontay Johnson is traded, and
You're like
Adam
a
Thielen is
team that
injured
needs
for
a
the
wide
season.
receiver to step up, and he can't get on the field.
Can't get on the field. The Cowboys give him a fourth round draft pick. I was interested. So NFL trading deadline. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins. Initial results are looking like unbelievable here. So we'll see. He is 32 years old. We'll see if that really holds up for him. But and the Kansas City Chiefs, that looks like a pretty good one. And then interestingly, the Eagles shipped the fourth round draft pick to the Commanders for Jahan Dotson. Well, they turned around before the deadline and shipped that pick to New Orleans for Marshawn Lattimore, who may be, on the downside of his career a little bit, but still probably a pretty good upgrade for the
Yeah.
Commanders.
Yeah, I know. I don't know your thoughts on this because we talked about it briefly, but I seriously think the Commanders. It's out of left field. When they took Jaden Daniels initially, I had watched him in college. I didn't think it would be this. He looks extremely impressive. I think. I thought that I thought for sure that he had the athleticism, but I wasn't sure about. And again, when I say I wasn't sure, I'm not a pro scout. I'm not somebody who's watched every attempt he took, so I'm not the foremost expert. But just from watching him, I didn't think it would look like this as a passer. And I remember watching the Bengals game that they played, like week 3 or something, thinking like this seems like a fluke, but it seems like that's not a fluke. It seems like he really um, and Washington has had weapons for a couple of years.
Yeah,
They just haven't
I
been
mean,
able to get the quarterback right. And
the
Marshawn
interesting
Lattimore is a
couple
great ad.
Yeah, the interesting couple things here. The Commanders clearly the organization has turned a corner from the Dan Snyder years and
Yeah.
making smart moves, which is frustrating for Eagles fans because they were in the dumpster fire with the Cowboys and the Giants, and it is kind of nice when all those teams just really make bad decisions one after another, and then it really gives you some wiggle room. So that wiggle room seems to be gone. On a second point, a lot of these guys I watch on Twitter and some of the other things that analyze quarterback play that supposedly know more than I do, think Jaden Daniels is doing a good job and things like that, but and not to the level like him and Jordan Love don't uh, aren't making as many good plays. This is their opinion as like say Baker Mayfield and Drake May and a couple other people that they're a little bit more high on from a just a physical making what throws they're making, what they're completing downfield. So a lot to see here yet, and we're halfway through the season. Caleb Williams is looking like he's a rookie. Drake May is making some interest. That play he made at the end of regulation against the Titans. Did you see that? Him ran
Yeah.
around for like literally 12 seconds. So I think there'll be a lot to see here before the end of the year of who's a pretender, who's the actual contender. I'm not ready to sign any of those up for either one of them, but they are looking generally those three quarterbacks, Williams, May, and Jaden Daniels, are all looking pretty good. Actually, Bo Nix, and that's going to
Well,
be
when I
one of
say
my
when I
games I'm
talk
picking this week. But I think Bo Nix is looking, better than pedestrian for sure.
Yeah, I don't like the Broncos as a unit, but I think he's looked slightly better than I think. The Daniels thing for me is from the standpoint of um with a team that's in your division. I really think that they're going to pose a threat to the Eagles for a while. I think that they're, like you said, they got a totally different ownership and management structure. Uh, I think Quinn, I think there's a ceiling with him as a head coach, but I do think from all the stops he's made, he gets his players to buy what he's selling. I think he really is a players coach, and the for a lot of times in Washington over the last several years, the theme has just been kind of like apathy. Um, it's just like there's really been no identity to that team for a really long time. They're just kind of a laughing stock. No one seems to really care. Nobody seems to really, probably because it comes from the ownership down. And that seems to not be the case. Those guys seem to be bought in and playing hard, um, conveniently at a time where the Eagles, I think we thought the division should have been wide open. So I'm looking forward to that game. Another thing that is concerning is even when the Washington has been terrible, we have always played poorly in recent years against Washington. They've they've been able to
Right.
take us out in a couple of their seasons where they've won like 3 games. So, um, yeah, I think that'll be a fun one to watch. And then pivoting,
Next Thursday night. Next Thursday night is the first Eagles Commanders matchup of the season.
yeah, and let's pivot there because we do have a lot of division games this week coming up. And so let's start off with picks of the week. For me, I looked around. I will say this. I think I may have said this before. I think this is about a hard a year for in my opinion, as I remember, and I've been betting pretty frequently, especially on the NFL for probably 5 years now. And this seems to be a pretty tough year because there's a lot of inconsistency from the quarterback position. There's been a good number of injuries. I think the quarterback position is as important now as it has been. So, and they've got a lot of young guys. You got a lot of player movement, things of that nature. So I've had trouble kind of pinning it down, but I think for this week, I would like if this number was 3, but I have the Bills Colts game being a 4-point spread, and I'm just going to try to bank on that inconsistency a little bit. I think the Colts are kind of in kind of an identity crisis right now, and I think the Bills have been looking good as of late. And my strategy is I just want to take a team I believe in. I think I've lost the last couple weeks on here on my picks because I've tried to go with what I thought was the best value, and that has bit me in. It's come back and bite me. So I think I'm just gonna take the Bills because I like what they're doing. I think Colts are a little inconsistent, and I'm going to take the Bills -4. I would like if it was 3, but I'm going to take it at the 4.
Yeah, I think that seems to be pretty good. I mean, I watched that Vikings Colts game last week, and Flacco doesn't really seem to have a lot of open receivers to throw to, and Jonathan Taylor started out really well, and like the Giants started running like crazy, and then all of a sudden they decide they want to pass the ball. The Colts just fumbled it up, and then they never seem to be able to run again in that game. So I think you might be onto something there with that pick. Yeah, I'm actually going to go. The Broncos got embarrassed in Baltimore last week. They've been playing pretty well though, and they are traveling to Arrowhead. And I think that the Chiefs aren't beating anybody by significant margins. I thought they would roll it up on Tampa Bay. And, Todd Bowles, how do you not go for two there? I don't understand how you not go for two at the end of that game, knowing that if you lose a coin flip, you probably lose the game. He did, and he did. But he needed to go for two there. Because here's the other thing. Like you watch some of these Eagles games, and Nick Sirianni out of the blues going for 2 points for nothing, right? But the Buccaneers had been moving the ball, especially in the red zone. The Buccaneers were playing really well in the red zone.
Hey,
So
I think what you're saying is semi overcomplicating it. And we talked about this. There was another game like this, and I'm blanking on it. It may have been college football, but I remember we talked about it this weekend. For my money, man, if you are in a game with a team you're not really supposed to beat, especially in a primetime game and especially on the road, I'm finishing it, and I'm okay with the result. I'm dialing up because these guys drill these plays endlessly.
right,
You've heard ex NFL guys talk about it. They have a part of every single practice that is situational. It's 2-minute drill. It's 2-point conversions. It's all that stuff. So that somewhere they've got a play they like. And if I go down and score a touchdown with not enough time for them to come back and do something with it on the road in that type of game, I'm just going for it and I'm living with the result. I'm just going to try to because like what's the value there? You're basically banking on a coin toss anyway, right? Because
right.
you're banking on you got to get the coin toss because this thing's going to overtime at that point. And like you said, you're not why are you more confident that if they get the coin toss you're going to stop them on defense than you are in your best 2-point conversion play to win the
Yeah,
game?
I mean the whole thing with the analytics is mind numbing, right? You've got the momentum, you're executing well, and that's what I think. What I was looking at, like they executed themselves all the way down there
Yeah,
very easily with an undermanned team. Baker's playing really well. You should try to go for it. Now,
yeah.
if you suck at 2 point conversions like the Giants do, like the Giants, like on whatever day they were going for 2 point conversions and lining up, three linemen and a receiver behind them, and it lost 3 yards. Like if you can't execute, I don't care what the analytics say. You can't like some of these guys are saying, well, the analytics are, for all 2 point conversions, if you're over 50%. But hey, listen, if you're the Giants and you're executing like 15%, the analytics throw them out the window because your analytics, you don't qualify for those analytics.
Well, I
If
think
that
what's
makes any
lost in
sense.
I think look, I'm not a mathematician. I don't claim to be. But I think when you get into not only these analytic conversations, but just anything that's based in the mathematics, the probability, what you lose a little bit of is that it sounds super obvious and I sound like maybe a idiot who doesn't know what I'm talking about, but you're still just talking about probability. You're still just talking about a theoretical universe where this happens at this percent of the time. It doesn't, that does not play into what actually happens on the field, on the court, whatever else. Like none of that stuff matters. And so
Well, it's just, I
that's why
mean,
coaching for all of time has been about, prior to this analytic wave, has been about like you know, somebody who's very good at being I think one of the people that does the best of anybody going is Mike Tomlin. He seems to strike that balance really well of being a player's coach, knowing when to be aggressive, knowing when to, kind of take the conservative approach based on how the game is playing out.
I just think that when I listen to these guys, they're saying like that this is what the probability is, and that is not a blanket statement. Your team does not have the same probability if you're the Giants as the Bills or the Chiefs or somebody else because they're probably executing better than you. So you shouldn't be using the same playbook and the same rationale for whether I'm going for it or not. Anyway,
Well, it's just easy. It's
Todd
easy.
Bowles
It's
should have
easy.
gone.
It's easy to talk about probability because it has no actual bearing on what happens. It's all you can quantify. You can't quantify a gut instinct, so you can't talk about it. You
Yeah.
can't like you can talk about the math. You can because it's easy because it's what's happened in the past, but you can't quantify. Whatever. So that's why it's important to have a head coach who is very good and experienced and can walk that line because sometimes the analytics is your friend and you have to listen to it and make that call, and other times you just have to, like, for me,
Well, and
what I'm talking
yeah.
about when we're talking about this Buccaneers thing, it's not analytically based or anything like that. It's just simply all about the fact that you're on the road, you just had a really nice drive, and you can put them away. You can go for the jugular against a team who hasn't lost a game. And I'm okay. And that's the other part of it. If I'm Todd Bowles in that situation, I go for it. We don't get it. I am okay with that result. I'm okay with that
Yeah, and I
result
think
over
that's. I
taking.
think the problem. I think the problem, like you and that I have for like Nick Sirianni is he doesn't seem to have like the time and place. Like the analytics is one input into your decision making.
Right.
How your team is playing, what the score is, what their defense is doing, what the chance, what happens if you make it, what happens if you don't make it. All those things need to equate into there. It's almost like he's not even thinking about all those other things, and all he's thinking about is, well, I can put 2 points up on the board because that's what the analytics say. And so I think you're right. Mike Tomlin is a good example of somebody who seems to play that well.
Doug
Todd
Peterson
Bowles, I don't
was
think is a very good head coach, and I
Doug
think,
Peterson was in the Super Bowl year. I
yeah,
can't speak to later, but there's guys that are really good at that. But let's
I think he made some good calls there. So my game, Denver going to Kansas City. Denver gets 7.5 points. I don't think Kansas City is going to cover that many. And I think that, Denver wants to get themselves back in the win column. I don't know if they're going to win this game, but I think it's going to be tighter than 7.5.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Let's so that's our picks of the week. You're taking the Broncos. I like that pick, and I'm going to go ahead and back the Bills against the Colts -4. We'll see how that shapes up.
There's
And
the Sunday night game. I don't know if you're looking for a head to head. Is the Lions and the Texans. I know you're a huge Lions fan. They are favored by 3.5 traveling to Houston.
Yeah,
Do you
Texans
want?
aren't a team I bet against. But I'm a secondary Lions fan. After I watched their Hard Knocks. That's the only Hard Knocks I've ever watched. I'm buying what Dan Campbell's selling. On top of that, they're just an entertaining team to watch. But I have been watching them the last couple of years pretty closely. So I would never bet. I don't bet against the teams I like ever. So I don't bet against the Lions. And I wouldn't. I don't like that number just from the standpoint. I think they could do it, but I like the Texans enough to stay away.
Do you want to? Is there another game you want to go head to head on this week? Since
I didn't
last week it
identify
was
one. I should have thought about it before.
last week it was the
Um,
Cardinals, and while you're thinking about that, last week was the Cardinals and the Bears, and the Bears went down to Arizona and just played terribly, and I had the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are playing deceivingly well. So I liked them in that game, and they came through for me there. So there's I don't know if there's any the Monday night game next week is the Dolphins and the Rams. Um, and the Rams are getting or Dolphins are getting 1 point. They looked better with Tua back. I can't stand watching them play with him, knowing that he
yeah,
takes one shot, he's probably going to go down like a toy soldier.
yeah.
But
Let's Let's spin it back and do. Do you have your remind us of your trivia question of the week?
Yeah, the trivia question of the week is NFL footballs are made out of what material?
I think that for me, I'm gonna go with I think pigskin. Here's my thinking. I think I remember hearing this. I think it used to be pigskin, and at some point it transitioned to leather.
Which is what?
Is that pigskin?
No, it's
I know.
cowhide.
Cowhide.
Cowhides. Cowhide is the right answer.
I
The
didn't have that.
NFL footballs are made out of cowhide, and they are not made out of the skin of pigs.
So I was partially right. I just didn't know the source of the leather. Um, yeah, we'll have to. Well, maybe we'll have to get into
Anything
it or
leather
have
is
a.
just for the record. Anything leather is from cows.
Well,
So
maybe
there's
that's you learn something new every day.
yeah.
But one point down the line, we might have to do a little segment or some trivia on. I don't know the story, but we'll have to do something maybe on like baseballs. I've heard something crazy about like the way MLB baseballs are made with like this very specific mud from like this one river. Something about like one singular family has provided the mud they use for baseballs as like an adhesive for like the last 70
Hmm.
years or something. So that's kind of crazy.
I'm
But
not familiar with that one at all.
yeah, so maybe we'll do that later. We're out of time today. So that was your trivia question. We got our picks of the week. Do you have and you got an entertaining dog story? Uh,
Yeah,
and and there's a good Bengals Ravens divisional matchup on tonight. I got a Bengals fan in the household, so we'll be tuned into that. And do you have anything else for our viewers before we jump off?
who do you think is going to win tonight? Bengals are +6.
I might just watch this one as a spectator because I think the Bengals are. I think the Bengals are on the semi upward trajectory. I don't love what they're doing, but I think they're looking better, and I think this is a big game for them. So I think if they're going to show up big anytime this season, now's the night to do it. But I'm a big King Henry fan. I love Lamar Jackson, so I think this could end up being a good game. And AFC North games tend to be pretty physical and pretty tight majority of the time.
Yeah, I mean the Ravens are the one that seems like they got it all under control until they just have put up a series of plays where they make some critical mistakes or they can't get certain things going. It's they're an interesting team to watch because they when they're playing well and they play well a lot, they look great. But they go up to Cleveland and lose to the Browns.
Yeah,
So but then they like just handled business with the Broncos last week. So I would expect the Ravens to be up for this game, and I would expect it to go Baltimore's way. But good test for Cincinnati.
yeah, I agree with all that. Yeah,
Um,
so we'll round it out with that. And thanks for everybody who stayed tuned all the way to the Cowhide trivia question of the week. And
yeah,
we appreciate your continued viewership. Like I said, if you have anything you want us to talk about, if you're watching this or you're tuned in, leave a comment on our YouTube channel. And if you do, we'll get to it. And that'll do it for us today here. Take care, everybody. Even those in New Zealand, we haven't forgot about you. And we will see you back next week.
see ya.